Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was one of the very unlucky 3 that in the end of episode 3 of Beast Games was eliminated because our partner put the cuffs on 4 seconds too late.
Heartbreaking. So sad. But we've had a lot of people ask more about what it was like for Sam's journey. If you haven't watched the first video that we did, I'll leave a link above to what it was like in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, going from 2,000 people to 1,000 people.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Go ahead.
And then it just got more crazy as time went on. So I made it through that, got down to 1,000. I moved on. We moved on to actually be a part of the Amazon Prime Video Beast Games, and then made it through the first 2 episodes, which we'll get into and talk a little bit about what that was like, and then ultimately what it was like to be eliminated in episode 3.
Yes, and I don't know how many people have talked about this like online, but him being in Vegas, he was gone for a couple days, and there's no contact with family, and then I'm just like waiting to hear, knowing that if I hear from him, then it means he's eliminated. If I don't hear from him, it's a good thing. I knew that the extent could be a maximum of like 4 days. So we kind of knew like a time frame. It was a few weeks later when he left to go to Canada. Yeah. And when he left there, I had no idea what the communication was going to be like. And also there was a potential of him being gone for like up to 6 weeks, wasn't it? They told us that it could be up to 6 weeks. Yeah. And I had no idea what he was going to be doing. Like,
it was I didn't know either. I was just accepting it and saying, sure, I'm going to go try to win $5 million. That sounds amazing. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. And so it was, I mean, just the application process alone was pretty extensive.
Yeah,
Are you willing to do some really crazy things? And even some of them I said, I'd rather not, but for $5 million, sure, I'll give it a shot. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. And so it was a little nerve-wracking for me going into it as well, not really knowing what I was going into, but knowing based on the experience I had in Las Vegas that it was going to be very intense. And these challenges and things that we were in were crazy. I mean, you can see it now. Up to episode 7 is out now that you can watch. So long after I got eliminated. But even watching some of these episodes afterward, it's really crazy because I recognize so many of these people along the way.
Yeah, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding what had happened in Allegiant Stadium and whether or not it was managed well and all that. And when Sam first flew to Canada, he had his phone for like the first, 24 or 48 hours? Yeah. Like during all the check-in process, so he was able to talk to me.
Yeah.
And it seemed pretty clear right from the get-go that this was way more professionally managed.
Yeah,
it was a whole different ball game with the production team, wasn't it?
Definitely. Well, and it went from 2,000 to 1,000. So that alone, it's half the amount of people. Sorry, I know that's some pretty crazy math I just did there. But it was definitely managed a lot better. There were a lot more people involved, making sure that everyone was well taken care of. So speaking for myself, I'm sure there are other people out there that might say differently, but for me, it was very well managed.
Yeah, and before we get into what the games were like itself, also, I got a lot more communication as a family member. So basically, like every other day, I would get a text from the production team that would let me know, your loved one has made it through such and such day. They're moving on to the next episode, which was really nice as a loved one because you're just waiting around every day knowing you can't hear from them. You have no idea what they're doing, where they are, what's going on. And so it was a lot nicer for me to know that about every other day I would get a text saying, he moved on or waiting for that moment when you were going to call.
Yeah, it was. And for me being in the games and leaving a wife and 2 young kids at home, it was such an emotional thing. It's hard to describe. And as you see these players throughout these games and things, and the connections that people make and the emotions that people show, and sometimes even breaking down, it's hard to describe exactly how emotional things got, especially for someone like me and many of the other players that had loved ones at home, young kids at home, and wives at home and things like that. But it was every time that a challenge ended and I moved on, I teared up a little bit thinking about the fact that my wife was getting a text that, hey, your loved one's moving on. And I'm just like so proud and so excited that I'm moving on. And I just dreaded the moment that she might get a text or that I would have to call her and say I'm coming home without $5 million. That was just the biggest nightmare. But man, so there was just a lot of high emotions running.
Definitely a lot of high emotion. So getting into the Beast Games themselves. So when you first got to Canada another thing too, production wise, was that they gave like me an itinerary of what the first like couple days were going to look like. Like they told us, and I can't remember if they had sent it to me
you're
after.
right. I had seen that.
I knew that you were going to be in a hotel. You were going to be taken somewhere for day one challenges. And if you completed that, then you would go to the city.
Yeah.
So I knew that was going to happen. And I did get a text after day one letting me know that you made it to the city.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
Okay,
I
so
did.
they said he officially made it to the city.
He made it to the city.
That's cool.
He made it through episode 1 and he's made it to the city. So I did get that. So I did know like, okay, he's leaving the hotel about this time. He's going here. And then did get all that good news, which was super awesome to hear that you had made it through the first episode.
Yeah.
But episode 1, now watching back, was crazy.
Episode 1, the fact that anyone made it through episode 1.
Let alone half the people.
I know that they needed 5. Okay, we're starting off in Beast Games. Here we go. There's 1,000 people now. Episode 1. And the first episode has to get down to 500. So once again, splitting the whole thing in half.
Yeah.
And wow. Okay, yes, there was some strategy to it, I guess, because, different bribes and things. But ultimately, it came down to luck for most people.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be surrounded by people that didn't eliminate me, right? And so, and we'll get into some of these things.
There were so many more bribes in the first episode than almost what there was like throughout most of up to episode 7 is what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were a lot more opportunities to just say, like looking around going, oh crap, this is a lot of people. Did you think that like when you walk in and you're going on these platforms, did they tell you right away that the platforms were going to drop?
It was pretty obvious.
Okay.
I don't think they had to use those exact words. Well, no, they did. They said, hey, these are trap doors, so don't jump on them. Be careful when you're walking. Don't be crazy because, they're trap doors. So you don't want to just cause a malfunction of some kind.
Yeah.
Even though as the games went on and exciting things happened, we were jumping like crazy on these doors. So thankfully they held. But yes, we knew that they were trap doors. And it was very obvious just by looking at them as we walked on.
Did you have to go up a ladder to get onto them? Or did they build down for the trap part?
So yes and yes, I guess. So there was like it was more, we didn't walk up a ladder, but we walked up some staircases to get to the height of the platforms. Okay. Yes. So once you walk down, you could kind of see underneath and what it looked like underneath that and where you would end up if you were to fall through. So we kind of had an idea as we walked in and out to use the restroom or whatever else we needed to do along the games.
Okay, so this first challenge is he pulls up $1 million.
Yeah, of course he did. First thing, million dollars. First thing, he says, okay, I'm going to give you a bribe. But here's the thing, and there's all these twists. There's always, you never know exactly what's going to happen. And first of all, you walk in and there's 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain how many people that, in a one big room like that just looks like so many people. And just being there alone, I just had to keep telling myself, you know what? If anyone can win it, it's just as likely that I win it as anyone else in this room at this point. I mean, it's 1 out of 1,000 chances, but still, I gotta keep my spirits high and pretend that I'm the winner.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if it's discouraging because you're going in and you're seeing all these people and being like, wow, only one person gets the 5 million.
Yeah.
So you were staying positive, though.
But I kept telling myself and those around me that, hey, it's just as likely that you win as anyone else in this room right now. So let's stay positive. Let's have a good time. And of course, inside I'm freaking out and stressing like crazy, but I'm trying to be positive around to those around me. And I even had close friends tell me that I was like a super calming person to have around, and they liked to be around me because I tried to keep positive. And of course, that was my outward appearance, but inside I was freaking out. Of course, right? It was very, very stressful and high stakes, right?
Yeah.
So first challenge.
Yeah.
$1 million. And
were you tempted?
Okay, so yes and no. Mostly no.
Okay.
And this is the reason why. So if someone takes the bribe, then they're eliminating themselves, but they get $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. Seems pretty simple. Except for my first thought, and we saw that this happened later on in the episode. By the way, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen episode 1, go watch it before. Actually, go watch all 3 episodes and then come back and watch the review. But I don't want to give things away. So the first challenge, if you take the $1 million, you eliminate yourself, but there's no limit to how many people can click the button.
Yeah, and it gets split. It's not everybody it splits the $1 million.
Yes. So you could end up with $1 million or you could end up with $1,000 if everyone pushed the button.
Yeah.
And so my thought was, you know what? yes, it's going to go slow at first, but in the end, when people see, hey, I could win thousands, maybe 50 more $1,000, there's going to be a lot of people pushing it the last second, thinking that they're going to get that much money.
And then it'll bring it all down for everybody.
And then it'll bring it all down for everyone. And that's exactly what happened. So I didn't plan on pushing that button.
Okay. And at that point, everybody is walking away with, I think it was a little less than $20,000, right? So a bunch of people are out there. Then the next challenge is that one person had to self-sacrifice
To save the row.
to save the whole row.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Yeah. That's.
And was that ever tempting?
Oh, heavens no.
Yeah.
No.
Because if I'm going down.
Here's the thing. I was in this for my family, myself, my family to win. Of course, along the way, I made some really good friends. And it was so hard to see friends along the way get eliminated. It really was. Those bonds were very, very strong. However, when it came to self-sacrificing, I wasn't going to do that. It was just never in the cards for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to go home with nothing just to save some other people in the game.
Yeah.
At that point. And in my row, I did have some good friends, but I was never going to self-sacrifice. I was just hoping and praying that someone would.
How quickly did your row get someone to self-sacrifice?
We were, I think, the last one. The last one to someone self-sacrificed and saved us. And then the other row, or was it 2 rows? And then the other 2 rows were eliminated because they eliminated 2 full rows in that challenge.
Were you near the person who self-sacrificed? Like, were you convincing anybody to? Or was everybody just like silent and waiting for someone?
No, we were talking amongst us, of course, trying to see where other people were and if they would potentially push the button to self-sacrifice. But the person that ended up doing it was way up the line. I didn't even know this person, and I thank you for saving me. But it was the last second, boom. And when she pushed it, our whole row went green and we were safe, but wow, it was very, very stressful. But in that moment when it turned green, oh my gosh. I mean, the feeling of just, I'm moving on, was just so amazing and exciting.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel so bad for all these other people who did. I mean, half the people got eliminated. They make it through Allegiant Stadium, which is like so grueling and so crazy. And then they get to Canada, and because someone's not willing to sacrifice, they just go home.
Yeah. Yeah, and as simple as that. Like, just, if someone decides not to, that whole row is gone. And I think it was, 80 people in a row?
Yeah.
Something like that. So crazy. It was a lot of people gone just like that.
Okay, the next one, at least your fate was in your own hands a little bit because it was stacking the bricks. Or stacking the blocks.
Stacking the blocks, yeah. So we had these foam blocks that we stacked up. And really, it was as simple as this. We're going to set a timer. I think it was 10 minutes. You have all these different shapes and colors. You have to start with this certain square block and stack a tower on top of it. And really, it's as simple as you stack the tower however you want. The first 100 towers to topple over are eliminated. And the game is that simple.
Yeah.
So they say go. We start stacking. Of course, everyone is sweating and stressing. I mean, this is all in each individual person's hands at this point.
But if any of your blocks fell, you were gone, right?
While you were stacking?
Yeah,
yes.
while you were stacking.
If they fell off the platform.
It wasn't like, I can if it falls, I can pick it back up and put it back on?
Not if it falls off your platform. If it falls off your platform, you're done.
Okay, what if it fell and stayed on your platform?
Oh, then you can start over. Until the timer ends, the only rule was that your tower, all your blocks have to be stacked, and your hands have to be off of your tower when the timer ends.
Okay.
So that was that. So if you were still trying to stabilize at the very end, even if all of your blocks were stacked and you were still touching it, you're eliminated. Or at least, yes, you're potentially one of the first 100 that are eliminated.
Okay, were you nervous at all about this one, or did you feel confident?
Yeah. Well, for me, when I heard what the challenge was going to be, I was stepping around the platform and kind of moving around, jumping around a little bit, and just seeing what parts of the platform are going to be less likely to move or to be on a slope of some kind. Because I wanted to make sure that it's as level as possible, and that if I'm moving around or have to move around, because there's a twist to this as well, that it's going to stay stable as possible. But another twist to it was that in the end of the 10 minutes, if everyone stepped aside and everyone's towers were remaining, or at least there were less than 100 towers that toppled over, then we each had a ball that we would be able to throw at other people's towers.
Oh my
And
word! That never got shown. That never ended up happening.
Didn't it?
No.
No, it never ended up happening.
So
But
you
I
were gonna
thought
be
they
able to play
explained that.
dodgeball.
So we're going to be able to play dodgeball with other people's towers. And so that was very, very stressful. But no one ever had to do that because enough towers toppled over before we ever got to throwing the balls at each other's towers. But that was something you had to keep in mind, too. Where do I put my tower that it can be best protected, or maybe that it's closer to one of my good friends that I know and trust won't knock over my tower?
Dang, so
that's
there's like
something you
a
had to
whole
keep.
other hidden layer.
So we're talking to the ones around us and saying, you're not going to throw at mine, right? Like, and before we decide where we're going to place it. But there's no guarantee,
Interesting.
right? I mean, you think you have good friends until one stabs you in the back. You
Yeah.
never know. So anyway, I build mine, and I'm all being cocky as well. And I'm thinking, I even told my friend, I'm like, oh, low-key, I'm a builder. I'm good. Mine's going to be set. Just being funny. But we built our towers, and it was crazy. The second the timer ended, one person right next to me was still touching his, and then it topples over. So he didn't even really have his all the way built and done. I knew he was eliminated. The other person next to me was good. 2 people down. His toppled right over the second the timer ended. Well, I lost one of my really, really close good friends in the games. Hers toppled over during it, like immediately. So the second the timer ended, you would just hear boom, tower after tower after tower just toppling over. But I wasn't keeping track of how many, so I wasn't sure, if I was safe or not. And so I tried to make sure mine stayed and didn't move. Eventually, mine did topple over. But as the results had it, after they reviewed all of the footage and everything and made sure everything was exactly timed and knew exactly when everybody's towers fell over, they found out that way over 100 toppled over before mine ever did. So I was way safe.
How long did it take for them to review all that footage?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. I mean, it was
even on the show, like you could tell it was a while for them to see like who
when you saw all the
what
screens and everything, they were being very, very careful to make sure that they were playing the game fairly for everyone. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they had hundreds of people looking at these screens, watching everything second by second, frame by frame. And yeah, so I don't even know. It was a time warp in that place. I'm telling you. It was just like one thing happened, exciting, boom, and it was like 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that, and then it was just, okay, you just sit there and wait. In this case, crossing my fingers that I was safe because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
It was a very stressful moment, but it was, at least for the people that went out, they went out on their own terms.
Yeah.
They, they tried to build a tower, it dropped, so they went out because they didn't do it, as opposed to so many other people that went out because of pure luck.
Or because somebody else took a bribe, which was what the last one was. This one was the craziest one to watch on the platforms back because you're getting bribed and it's just a set amount, right? Like he brings out set amount.
First one was $10,000.
Everybody in your row then gets eliminated.
Yeah, so the first one was the rows of 80, which was the long way, and then we switched it to the short distant rows, or columns, I think, as we called them, and then it was so if anyone took the bribe in that row, you were eliminated.
Yeah.
And that whole row was eliminated. So that one was definitely a lot more cut and dry. If someone decides to take a bribe, at least the person taking the bribe knows that they get to keep that money no matter what.
Yeah, and it's not being shared. It's not anything. Yeah. I mean, one guy took it at 20. A bunch of people took it at 50. Some people took it at 80. It got to $100,000.
Yep.
And like, I think one person started taking it, then another person took it. At what point, now, in case anyone's wondering, Sam and I, before he left, we had talked about like, what would our number of like life-changing money, bribery money be?
Like if I knew I could walk away with this number,
he'd walk away.
Would walk away. Yeah.
And what was that number?
250,000.
Yes.
And it was just, I don't know. I remember we talked for a long time. I don't know why, but that's the number we came to. Obviously, 100,000, even 50,000 is a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah.
But the big prize, the grand prize is $5 million. So it's hard to give up the potential of that. Hindsight's 2020. Looking back now, of course, I wish I would have taken a bribe, right? But in the moment, you're hopeful for more.
Well, not only that, but was there a piece of you, like watching it back, I would also think that if they're offering this many bribes in the very first episode, I would have expected more bribes in the future, which there weren't really as many bribes in the next few episodes after that
Nope.
as what I expected. And
Well,
so
there was a big one in the end of episode 2, which
but
will
not for everybody didn't have these opportunities
Right.
for bribes in the
Like the
future,
first
like this
episode.
one. This
Yeah, it's
first
true.
episode, so far, 7 episodes in, is the only one where every single person has an opportunity at a bribe.
equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah. So here's how I played it. Our whole row, of course, everyone is trying to make good friends with everyone when the bribe comes up to make sure your entire row doesn't push the button, right? So of course there's everyone all of a sudden trying to yell out and introduce themselves and say their names and really try to build that trust. Of course, the person at the very end of my row, because I was on one far end, the person on the other end, I could barely even see him, but his name's Jeremy in the show, the one with the big beard. But I knew him, and I knew that he wasn't one to take a bribe, so I knew he was good, but we could barely see each other on each end of the row, but we're shouting and saying, no, we're not taking it, no matter what. And we were some of the ones sitting down on the platform to prove that we're not going to jump and touch it. But what I did the entire time is I kept my eye on the entire row. I would not look away from people, because if I saw anyone starting to reach, I was going to try to beat them to the button and take the bribe, because at least I'd go home with something.
Well, yeah, if you see someone reaching, then you might as well get it first, which
Right.
you saw a lot of people did that as well, where they're like, I thought so-and-so was going to go for it and I couldn't trust them, so I might as well betray them first and get the money.
Take some money. And it's a lot of money, too. It got up to $100,000. I mean, I look back now and I'm thinking, man, that would have changed my life. That would have changed our life.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. But once again, it's because this was the last challenge before moving on to the city, which everyone was looking forward to the city because Mr. Beast built a city that we were going to go live in. And once again, we didn't know, okay, what kind of bribes will be there? What kind of opportunities will be there? And we're moving on and we're getting closer to the 5 million. Now, the chance of getting 5 million was very low still. Even at the end of this challenge, it had to get down to 500 people to move on to the city. Even then, you're 1 out of 500. That's very, very slim to win.
Yeah, but you're also like, how many times in your life are you a 1 in 500 chance at $5 million?
Never. And that's another thing too.
It's wild.
And I never had the opportunity to walk away with 250,000. So once again, there I was, and I'm just glad, and once again got lucky. Well, I guess that was not so much luck, because if anyone in my row had moved or flinched towards the button, I would have gone for it as fast as possible to try to get it. But no one did, thankfully. So we all moved on to the city.
Yeah, which is crazy. Going to the city. Like I said, I got a text at home saying that he made it to the city, which was super, super exciting. And I think they told us how many people were left in those texts as well, I believe.
Yeah.
So I knew that like
It was 500.
500 people. He made it through the whole first episode. A lot of times when they were texting family, that's how they would say it. They were like, he made it through episode 1. He made it through episode 2. And we didn't know how many challenges there were in each of those episodes. It was just told to us as episodes or as days.
Yeah, we
like
didn't
made it
even
through
know.
another day.
We had no idea how many challenges were going to be in each episode or how they were going to do it. It was all just guessing, and we didn't know what was coming. The challenges were explained to us right before we did them, or not too far before we did them. So, yeah, and then some of the challenges had a twist, and so we weren't sure exactly how it was going to turn out. It was pretty crazy.
Okay, so you get to the city. First impressions of the city.
First impressions are, well, first of all, we're very, very excited. We're all very, very tired. I mean, it's in the middle of the night probably at this point, or 2 a.m. or something. It was time. We were in a time warp. There was just no telling what time it was, because we were always in these different places just waiting for challenges or doing challenges. But the big gates open. And of course, we're super excited. There's this whole city. There's a huge tower. As we walk in through the gates, we look up to our left-hand side. There's a huge tower. To our right, there's all of the dorms, and we just need to go right away and pick the dorm, which one we're going to be sleeping in. There were bikes to ride around. There was basketball. There was soccer. There was all kinds of different things we could do. There was a Feastables Cafe, which would just have food for us for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we would walk up and just pick what we wanted. Always were very well fed. So yeah, it was really cool. There were portable showers for us to be able to shower and all of that. So pretty well set up. As we walk through the gate, the first thing you see is the big stack of money, the $5 million, right?
Yeah.
And of course, that's just crazy and exciting. And it has this big glass case over it, basically, to prevent it from flying away or for anyone to try to steal it. And I did want to point out that it was because of an experience in the city that I thought the money was fake. And I mentioned that the money wasn't real in the first video that we made about the experience in Las Vegas at the Raiders Stadium. But the reason that I thought it was fake is because at one point the case was lifted off and there was some loose bills kind of blowing around in the wind. And I picked one up and it was fake. But I've learned since, and this actually makes a lot more sense because every time that the pile of money was exposed, there were guards, there were security people there protecting it. And so I always was under the assumption that it was all real. But I saw this bill and I'm like, oh, this is fake money. But it's been revealed later, or at least I know now, that all the stacks of money were real and the loose, crumpled up bills around were not. And that makes sense, right? If the wind's going to blow it around and stuff, you wouldn't want that money blowing around. So just to clarify, the stacks of money were real money.
I think it's funny. We watched a behind the scenes thing where Mr. Beast himself, when he saw the fake money on top, he's like, can we switch this to real money? People are going to think it's all fake if they see this. And that's exactly what happened. That's what Sam thought as well. So Mr. Beast was worried about it and they told him no, like it was too late to change it. And so I think it's funny that he kind of knew exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah, and I didn't want to look like I was trying to steal money, so I didn't walk up and investigate the bundles of money that well. I just picked one off the ground and I'm like, well, I'm surprised they're letting this blow around. And then I saw it that, oh, that's not real. That's why. Anyway, so just to clarify, the real money, the real stack of $5 million is sitting there. And so you see that once again, just trying to fathom how much money that truly is. When you see it in person, this huge stack of money, just it's hard to even begin to imagine how much. And so once again, that's huge motivation for us to keep trying to move forward and get as close as we can to the end, if not win it all.
Yeah, the towers. What was your first thought when you saw the towers?
Well, we didn't know what the games were going to be. We just knew based on the towers alone that it was going to get pretty intense.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to do is speak for myself as far as my experience in which game I played and kind of get through that. And I will say living in the city was fun. And we did spend multiple days there. It was a good time, even though I was only lasted through two episodes in the city. It was still multiple days that we got to stay there, hang out, make good friends. Just so much time that they're not able to show in the show, of course, because they can't make it forever long. But we had a lot of time to sit and mingle and make such good friends.
Yeah,
so,
the tower, I have to say, so I was trying, like every single day I'd be online trying to find spoilers, trying to find any info. There was actually quite a bit when you were in Allegiant Stadium that was coming out like every day, like these spoilers of what was going on. In Canada, there was not a lot. There was like no info of what was going on in the city, but there were people that were showing pictures from the outside when the towers got lit up the first time. Yeah. There were people in Canada sharing on social media.
We would see the drones fly by sometimes.
Yeah, here's these towers. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I know that he's on there and that he's doing challenges on that tower. Obviously, I had no idea what it was going to entail.
It was funny because there was one time we heard this drone and we say, oh, because Mr. Beast and the cast and the Prime Video people, of course, they have their films or their
own drones.
Yeah, their drones and their video cameras and all that stuff. So we weren't ever sure what was what. But there was one time one flew over and it was higher in the air. And I overheard someone say, that's not ours. And so obviously I'm thinking, okay, there's a Canadian out there getting some footage, and that's going to be all over the internet. But
I was looking for it. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it ended up on the internet.
Yep,
so
it did.
There you go.
Okay, so first tower challenge. You pick coins.
Yep, so there were these wooden coins that we picked, and on it said which one we were going to be, and if it had a star on it, then we were on one side of the tower, and no star was on the other side of the tower.
And some people traded and decided that they wanted to try to go with a certain color, a certain number. Did you trade? Were you tempted?
How we got our tokens was reaching into a bag and grabbing it. And my closest friends and allies in the game ended up getting something different than me.
Did they all get the same?
Well, one of my good friends that was on the pillar next to me, she ended up getting the same as me. Okay. But most of my other friends did not. And sorry, what did you say?
Was it like all of your other friends were in a different one and then it was just you, or was everybody kind of spread out?
We were all kind of spread out.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Did you try to get together?
So our strategy was, let's try to get together. But after I picked up my token and I saw what it said something about, I hope you can catch. And I'm thinking, I can catch a ball. And also on top of that, I'm thinking, this is just, I felt like it was my fate, like that I had chosen it. It was
Destiny.
my destiny. I had chosen it and I couldn't give it up. And there were people that wanted it, that were trying to trade with me. I couldn't give it up. So I hung on to mine and I just kept it. And most of my other friends they ended up keeping theirs as well. And some of them might have traded, but most of them kept theirs and went and just did what they chose as well.
So you went with fate.
I went with fate and hoped for the best. And so
Oh,
mine was
the ball drop.
The
Guys,
ball drop.
If you've seen the episode, the ball drop.
on the very top of the towers. I was yellow. The other team was wearing their white jerseys. And we were on the top and the ball drop. Yes. So they start dropping these balls through the top of the roof, and then there were all these different size holes and things scattered around the roof or the ceiling, and so the ball would drop down and it would bounce around and move around, and then it would fall through a hole, and the only rule was that we had to catch it. Someone in the team had to catch it, and the first one to drop their ball and hit the floor, their entire team is eliminated.
I was shocked by how fast this went. I really thought that they were going to start having to put like tons of balls all at the same time and that it was going to be chaos. It was 3 or 4?
I think Mr. Beast and the Beast team were as shocked as you and me. I was shocked as well.
They're just these red balls.
Yeah, I thought it would go forever. The problem is, though, is that there were so many people. You even see my face there once in a while in this, and I just am like looking over like, what the heck is happening? Because there were so many people trying to stand up and be in charge and tell, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And to the point where I just kind of backed up and said, well, I hope we win, because at
if
this
a ball
point,
comes down, catch it.
yeah, if I try to stand up and speak up, then it's just going to be one more person in this loud noise and chaos of people trying to tell other people how to play the game. So I just tried to speak to the people around me and say, hey, this is our corner. We got this. Let's fight and make sure that our ball over here does not drop.
But it was only how many balls before
I think
it dropped
it was
on your side?
the fourth one.
4.
And
4 balls.
none of them
That's
came over into
wild.
my corner, so I never had to even attempt to catch one. But it looked like, because I saw it happen, the ball drop. And it
You
looked
can see
like,
him in the background, actually, like right behind where it
yeah,
happened.
and I'm like, oh no. But it looked like what happened is multiple people went for this same ball at the same time, and then all of them backed off in the last second, thinking the other person was going to get it, and the ball drops. And so
what's your
our
feeling?
tower turns red. We're all done. We're eliminated. We're going home. And of course, at this point, I'm just defeated. I'm just thinking, oh, I cannot believe this. And I'm like, I hate the color yellow. And I'm just like getting all frustrated. And most people are frustrated or crying and knowing that, well, that's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
The other team, their tower lights up green, and they celebrate and just go crazy. And I'm talking to Carl for quite a while from Beast Team. I'm talking to Carl, and just, he's over there talking to people, trying to say how, oh, sorry, no, this sucks, whatever. But ultimately, it was just a crappy feeling. But in the end, we accepted our fate. And
How long were you stuck in that tower? Because that's the other thing. When they're reviewing footage, did they tell you they were reviewing footage, or were you just stuck there not knowing anything?
No, we were just waiting for the next thing to happen. The other team is celebrating, and we're all just kind of, some people are crying. I was talking to some friends and just saying, oh, this sucks, but I'm going to be excited to see my wife and my kids. It's all good. But it was probably, if I had to guess, close to an hour that we're waiting. And all of a sudden we hear Mr. Beast say, all right, you guys are going to want to see this. And so we all look up at the screen, and he's going to replay what happened. We're kind of confused. And then come to find out, the the camera didn't catch it, but on the other team, the first ball was dropped and hit the floor. And so we couldn't believe it. Of course, our tower, I'm surprised the thing's still standing. We were jumping and screaming. We couldn't believe, but I felt so bad for the white team because they had been celebrating. They thought they had won, and then it flipped on them, and they were all eliminated.
Well, and again, first ball, fourth ball.
Right.
Like, I cannot believe that it didn't go longer on either or both sides. Like, that's wild.
No, I expected it to go a lot longer. I expected them to be dropping the balls a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But anyway, so once again, I couldn't believe it, but I was safe and I was moving on to the next challenge. I had other friends that played in other challenges, and actually all of my close friends moved on as well. They were able to win the game that they were playing in the towers, and we all moved on to the next thing, which
Was the tower picking a captain?
which was the captain, and to go up and take or not take a bribe.
And how'd you pick your captain? Like, were you excited about picking Jeremy, right?
Yes, so I picked.
Guy with the long beard.
I was all about having Jeremy as our captain, and we didn't know for sure how much the bribe was going to be. So he was just making these promises beforehand, and so we all felt comfortable that he wouldn't take a bribe. And he'd been on other Mr. Beast videos and things, and we knew how determined he was to make it to the end. So we felt really good about Jeremy, and so we sent Jeremy up on our side. Once again, we're Team Yellow. And then other team captains picked theirs. And yeah, so they went up.
That episode was wild.
And it was just, once again, if you haven't seen it, watch it before you hear this review, because I don't want to give away spoilers, but it got up to $1 million.
At what point, like at what dollar amount, as you guys are watching this as a team, that you're like, oh crap, they're going to take it? There's no way they're not going to. Like, was there a moment where you were like, okay, at $500,000, they're now stupid if they don't take this, so I'm going home?
Surprisingly, I wasn't concerned about Jeremy taking it.
Really?
But there were other captains up there that did move or flinch, and so I thought that maybe one of them would. I felt sick to my stomach that nobody took it. $1 million. Because first of all, I was hopeful that one would take it. Not my captain, of course, but one would, because then that would eliminate that many people, and then we can move on with less people. And that would just strengthen my odds on winning the whole thing. But yeah, so I couldn't believe it. $1 million, not one of the four took it.
At what point, at what number would you have taken it that you would have hit the button?
Well, because that's a tough one, because the minimum that I would walk away with was 250, right?
Yeah. But it's like if you had hit it at 250, it could have gotten to $1 million, but like...
Here's the thing. On my team that I was stuck with, like I said, most of my close friends were on different teams because of the token that we chose. So there weren't that many people that I knew that well. So I don't think I would have been able to become captain. But if I had known that it was going to get to $1 million, I probably would have tried a little harder to be a captain. But anyway, so...
And they would have been sent home, and you would be home with me with $1 million.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have let it get to $1 million, though.
Yeah.
Because once again, the captains, there was no guarantee that they would be able to, or when it would end, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't know whether or not someone else was going to push it. But once it got to $1 million, and Mr. Beast gave them a lot of time to are you sure you don't want to take this? I would have been all over. I mean, $1 million, that's normally the grand prize for most shows.
Yeah.
And nobody took it. It was
crazy.
And it's
a fifth of what like the grand prize is. Like, nobody can be that confident, especially with Mr. Beast games. And Mr. Beast, like, at this point, you guys know how many times it's going to be left up to luck, right?
Yep.
There is no way that you can be that confident that you are going to be the one person at the end winning $5 million when there is so much luck involved in all of these games.
Yeah.
So to not take that big of a bribe, I think was just ludicrous.
But
it's
once again, I
insane.
do have to point out that these people, in order to be a captain, first of all, they didn't know that it was going to be up to $1 million. And second of all, they were swearing on their family members' graves, on their religion, on all of these different things that they would not take it. And in their teams, they had so many people that were so close to them. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have taken it. They should have taken it. For $1 million, they should have, honestly. It's just life-changing amount of money. But in the end, I think in the moment, once again, you have to be there to understand. But those bonds that we were creating, going through all of these crazy experiences together, were very, very strong. Not $1 million strong, but very, very strong. Yeah.
Oh, man.
And once again, they were promising on everything you can imagine. So I don't. Maybe they would have felt guilty after that.
Yeah. So they all stay. All the teams are still intact. You move forward. Was it just the very next day that you had the cubes?
Yeah, so actually the next day, I believe, was a day off. They just said, hey, you know what? Take a day and chill, enjoy the city. And then what comes next, we will tell you tomorrow or in a couple days. So it was just like, okay, well, at least we made it this far. We can sit, chill, relax. And then we'll get into, in the next video, we'll get into what happened that next day, but it was one of the craziest days of my life and definitely one of the most emotional. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I got a text saying that you had made it through the next episode, which was so exciting. I had seen online these big towers, so I knew something was happening on there. I had seen them lit up on social media. So knowing that you got through that day, it was like, okay, he made it through the first, he made it through the second. Every single day, I was just like, okay, if he can just make it through that next day. So, but like Sam said, we'll get into that next week of what it was like for episode 3, which is Sam's elimination episode.
Yes. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. We'll see you in the next one.
Talk to you later.